Hello, I'm Jess Hayden. On behalf of the Susquehanna Folk Music Society, I'd like to welcome you to today's Artist to Artist Residency on women's music entitled Women's Music Saved My Life. If you were at the first session, you know that this event is funded through a CARES Act grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. Additionally, we're thankful for funding from the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts and the Cultural Alliance of York County. Find out more about this and other Susquehanna Folk Music Society events at susquehannafolk.org. During today's residency, we ask that you keep your microphone on mute and put any questions that you might have in the chat. Now, on to folklorist Amy Skillman, who will introduce Session 2, Venues, Views, and Pews, Creating Community Through Music.
Thanks so much, Jess. And welcome back, everybody. I think most of you were in the morning session, the first session, still morning. So welcome back, those of you who were, and welcome to anybody who's new to this particular session. So this session, as Jess said, is called Venues, Views, and Pews, Creating Community Through Music. And this came out of when we were having a planning conversation for today. We had all the artists and the moderators together in a Zoom conversation, and these amazing stories just started coming out about ways that they were supported or ways that they were not supported as musicians, as women musicians, trying to craft a living for themselves. So we thought that it would be really fun to actually have a session, kind of a storytelling session. Storytelling is performing as well. And we thought who better to lead this than Deb D'Alessandro, who is the host of WXPN's Amazon Country. So with that, I will just remind you that if you want to use closed captioning, just click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen and add subtitles, and put any questions that you have in the chat, and we will try to get to those questions toward the end of the session. So again, welcome back, and Deb, it's you.
Well, thank you so much, Amy and Jess, and welcome to everyone who was with us in the earlier session. And if you're just joining us, we're really glad you're spending part of your Saturday morning with us. And again, my big thanks to the Susquehanna Folk Music Society for using your resources to highlight this important topic about women's music and culture. And when we, as Amy said, when we had our planning meeting, I love alliteration. So venues, views, and pews, that was one of my brainstorms, because so many of us, either as participants in the audience or performers, have sat in pews. There was some discussion earlier about like the role of churches, progressive churches, in providing space. And in fact, I wanted to tell you, Bobbi, that I love that you played Song of the Soul. I grew up in a Presbyterian church. We didn't sing that song. I visited someone else's Methodist church as a young lesbian in my 20s, and they started to play that. I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Chris Williamson. And then it didn't go into this part of the song I knew. I never realized until that point that Song of the Soul is based, the beginning on a Protestant song. So the place that I wanted to start, and I think we'll start with you, Jamie, is, what were the beginnings of performing for you, as far as when did you have like that first gig, and how did it come to be that you said, yeah, I'm a performer? Because I know all independent musicians are their own bookers. I mean, some people get big enough to be able to hire folks to do that, but this is the essence of being an independent entrepreneur. So what was that beginning like? And was there like a pivotal time that you said, yeah, I'm a performer?
Oh, are you kidding? I left out of the womb a performer. So I don't know if you want to go that far back. But yeah, women's music provided the venues for me to play at. I grew up in the Phoenix area, and there were a lot of, bars and places like that. And I guess my first performances were at lesbian bars, which were horrible places to play because those people were busy playing pool and ignoring their ex-girlfriend and whatever else one does in a lesbian bar. The sound systems were always terrible, a microphone from the DJ booth or something. I think my first real performance where I looked around and I said, yeah, I want to do this, it was in 1979, and it was a benefit for the local women's center. And they invited 5 different acts to come and play. And I had played at a very tiny coffee house that they'd done, and they decided to invite me. And I remember the sound guy, and at that time we only had guys doing that kind of stuff. The sound guy was like, well, we've only got time for 5 songs. And I remember thinking, I've only written 5 songs. I guess I'm good. And I was really terrified, but there I was on this big stage at Phoenix College Auditorium with a room full of mostly lesbians, and they were so responsive, and it was much different than a bar where you mostly got ignored. And my big song there was a song called Albino Roach Blues, and it was about finding an albino roach in my apartment. And the punchline was something about how this roach was running my life just like men run women's lives. And I said it much better than that in the song, and I'd sing you a piece of it, but that was way too long ago and I don't remember any of it. But that song got such a laugh, I had to stop the song. And I said, oh, comedy. So that's what was first planted in my brain, that funny songs are fun. You get a really big reaction from an audience. And then in the late 80s, I did my first tour. And again, I could plug into the Women's Music Network. It was already set up. There was a whole network of coffee houses and festivals and other places where I could play.
Well, we're going to have you at some point. I want you to reprise Albino Roach Blues, because that's just as a title.
It's a horrible little song. You really don't want me to play it.
So, Barb, how about you? Was there a particular performance where you had that kind of connection to the audience that Jamie's describing that fueled you on to do more of, to create other opportunities like that for yourself?
Yeah. When I came to Lansing, I was trying to break into the music scene. And as I said, I had switched from playing rock and roll and being in a rock and roll band to folk music. And so I started playing at political events. Take Back the Night March was a big one here in Lansing. Back in those days, we'd have 4,000 or 5,000 people at these marches. And so I played from the steps of the Capitol, and that led to some of the coffee houses. And I think probably my absolute favorite to play at was the Detroit Women's Coffee House that was produced by Ann Perrault. And I vividly remember a night where at that time I was playing with Hideko Mills. We performed Song for Rebecca, and the women were screaming like they do at the Beatles concerts. I mean, it was such a fantastic feeling, and I knew in that moment, I will never experience this again. And this is what it must be like for men when they perform, because it's just a whole different thing, men's sports, men's music. It's particularly in those days, just received more public acceptance and enthusiasm, right? But the Detroit Women's Coffee House was just a fantastic place, and there was really awesome food. The women adored you if you were a performer, for who you were, right? For the songs that you wrote and the music that you sang to them. And I'd have to say that that's what stands out for me when I think back.
And that, you just remind me of how much benefits, concerts, political rallies continue to be an important venue for particularly folk performers, that because there's a message in the music that connects with that event.
Yeah. And if I could jump in here for a moment, I played at the Detroit Women's Coffee House also. later than you did, of course. And what I was impressed with is that most of the audience was African American, and many of the performers were too. And that's the thing about women's music, is that it's multicultural. And I met lots of really wonderful women that night and heard lots of great music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great reminder. I've been part of the Sister Space weekend. There's a festival that still happens the weekend after Labor Day every year. It's in Darlington, Maryland now. There's always been a commitment to having multicultural leadership of that organization. And because the leadership is multicultural, so are the acts that they book, and so are the audiences that we attract. So it's a great reminder that that's inclusion means you're at the table planning. You're not just invited, to the event. So Bobbi, you've been both a producer of events and a performer. So where did that come together for you? I'm interested to hear the early days of, when you had that aha moment, and when you moved into, as Amy mentioned in the opening, creating safe spaces in your community of Central Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Cutting my teeth with playing with wind and wood. I mean, when I started playing, I was playing down at Skyline Drive. I was, so my first job playing on my own was, if anybody knows where Skyline Lodge was, it was this great, it still is, it's a touchstone place for me. Sits up on a mountain, and I had gone down there totally by accident. My music started with a pamphlet. My music career started with a pamphlet. I was checking out of a hotel outside of Washington. I was on my way to see my aunt and uncle in Florida. I was signing the to pay for my hotel bill. A door opens, and the brochure of Skyline Drive lifts off the wall and slides right in front of me. And I'm like, where is that? And it's like the sunset, and a couple sitting there arm in arm, looking down. And he goes, that's like an hour from here. So I'm like, so I redirected, went to Skyline, didn't know anybody, walked into the lodge, met these great people who lived from Pennsylvania. They're like, you should come down here and work. I'm like, okay. I drive back to PA. My parents were like, that was a quick trip to Florida. I'm like, never made it. I'm going to go to live on Skyline Drive. And they're like, okay, we'll help you get packed. And I took my 675 Pinto and drove down, and I was there, taking trail rides out and cleaning stalls and everything that you do when you're 18 and do anything. And their singer quit suddenly. And they're like, we need somebody to get up here and sing. They went down to the dorm room, because we all lived on the mountain. They're like, you need to get up and sing, like right now. And I'm like, I've never sang in front of anybody. They're like, it's going to be a quiet night. I get there. The room is packed with blue-haired women from New York City. Their bus gets redirected, and they're sitting there looking at me going, entertain us, make us happy. You're not that dulcimer player. We thought we'd come here. So who are you? So do what you can do. And I'm like, I'm dead meat. I played Over the Rainbow and Country Roads. And then at that point, when I realized that they weren't going to throw their glasses at me, not their reading glasses, but they're like, mason jar glasses, I'm like, I think I can do this. I think I can do it. Then I started playing for 2 years. Then I went up and I moved in, back up to my parents, meet Wind and Wood, meet Anna Dini, played that for 4 years. So I got that's where I really got my technique down of learning harmonies, of learning your three guitar players. Let's like, you're second fret A, I'll be first fret G, you'll be here, and voicings of guitars. And so I just kind of slipped into that, where, Jamie was talking about the bars being really noisy. It's all a different context for everybody. It's like these bars that we played, you could hear a pin drop for the song that somebody would ask for somebody else's somebody. And we'd sit there and there would be like these hundreds of people that would just have it. And then we'd do Wild Thing, or then we'd do something else, and then it would be crazy. So I went from all of that to my part of being a songwriter started when my friend Ann Billmeyer died. Commit suicide. I'm 29 years old, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? So I had this huge support system in place, ready for me to step out on my own after Anne had died, but I had no idea what I was going to do with it. and I was terrified. I'm like, I can't match this. I need to move. I need to like go somewhere else where somebody doesn't know me. And my first song that I wrote was a song for Anne called Reply, which I'm like, okay, if I can pull that off, I might be able to keep going. And then continuing to get back into the bars where I played, where Anne was now gone. Deanie had moved to California. And I'm like, I'm just trying to hold up these thousands of people over, spread out over this Tri-City area who are looking to me to fill a hole that I couldn't possibly imagine doing. But somehow I was able to pull it off by doing, the same type of songs, but putting some of my original songs in. And then that really helped me then go, okay, now maybe I can go to the next step and start. Then the women's music festivals were starting at that point. Camp Fest was a big one for us here in PA. Lee Glanton took a chance and brought me down, and I played. We'll talk about venues later, but you start at the ground level. Maybe you get to sweep the stage, and then maybe maybe you get to take the glass of water out to the opening act. Then maybe they let you do a sound check. And then maybe you get it open, then you get a this and that. Then you finally get to the night stage, if you're lucky, and the festival stays running as long as it does. So I was able to do that with Lee. And then for me, my defining moment of when I realized I could keep going and I was on the right track was I was playing with Deanie, my friend who was with the Wind and Wood, and we were also playing with our good friend Robin Chambers, who's a fantastic violinist. And we had a group called C2H, Carmel Jill Chambers Hamburger. And I said, you guys have to come with me to Camp Fest. They're both straight women, and they had never been to a women's music fest. I said, you have to come do Camp Fest with me. And I had the night stage spot. And so at that point, we had a record out called C2H, A Radical Bond. We each put 3 songs on. One of my songs is called Finer Day. And we got there, we did the set, and the song repeats at the chorus at the end, drops out a cappella, and then we kind of come back in. And at that point, when we're singing, everybody starts singing along to my song. And we go into the downbeat to go through the last bridge, and they're on their feet. And I'm like, oh my God, they know, not only do they know the song, but they're singing along with it. And it wasn't an ego thing, because we talk a lot about ego and performers. It was this acceptance of like this group of women who were like, you're going to be okay. I can't believe I'm getting emotional. You're going to be okay. You got through the loss of your best friend, and they're there because they lost her too. Sorry, you guys.
Oh, you don't ever have to apologize for having emotions.
So that was it for me. And then I'm like, I knew I was going to be okay. So, oh my God, what the hell?
Well, that so speaks to the power of art to transform often pain.
It does.
And that the audience experiences it in their own way. And that's an amazing connection, between what you created, which was a very personal experience, even people that didn't know her experience it through whatever losses they've experienced. And that's an amazing story. And I loved Camp Fest. It ended in 99. It was in Oxford, Pennsylvania. If people were never there, if you went and you saw the campsite that had a sign and lights that said Lesbopalooza in the hillside by the parking lot, that was my campsite. We were very friendly.
I didn't know that was you.
That was us. Yeah, we had like a coffee pot running in 24 hours. And
my God, that's great.
Who we were. You brought up festivals, which is a great segue, because that's what I wanted to talk about next, about the ways in which either and or as performers that it inspired you as a performer or as performers. And I know, Barb, you talked about in our opening session how going to the Michigan Women's Music Festival, which ran from 75 to 2015. So talk about what that meant for you, and were there other that or other festivals that you did, whether it was around the campfire or on stages, end up performing at?
Yeah, Michigan, well, which I think we'll probably talk more about this. I had a hard time getting into women's music as a performer. I think because, as in other areas of my life, I often walk the space in between worlds because I appreciate so many different things. And I was told more than one time that my music was not women's music. And I would be told by the folk community my music was not folk music, traditional, or whatever the genre is. I wasn't enough of that because I think I weave in between all the worlds. So my dream was to play at Michigan at the Women's Music Festival. And the closest I got was on the stage that they had. It was at night after the main stage. I forgot the name of the stage, but I got to play
August Night Cafe.
Yeah, thank you. August Night Cafe.
August Night Cafe. Thank you, Bobby, because I couldn't remember either.
Yes, I got to play on that. And funny story is, they have lights. It was in August, right? Big moth time. And I'm singing this really deep, heartfelt song. And I'm watching the moths flying around my head, knowing that any minute one's going to try to go in the cave, right? And it did. And I was choking. I still played. I kept playing, but I was like choking on this moth. My only stage performance at Michigan. But I think I did get to play at National Women's Music Festival one year with Hideko when it was in Bloomington. And I really had a great time, but it was very hard for me because I really wanted to be part of the festival scene and just could not break through. Same was true with some of the record distributors, like Lady Slipper, who used to distribute women's music, would not take me in their catalog because they said I was not women's music enough. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to watch from the sidelines and do more of the coffee house women's music scene, which was fine. I mean, it was a great audience, but I didn't get my dream fulfilled to play at Michigan.
And that's an amazing story of the...
Maybe we should all tell our embarrassing moments at Michigan stories.
Ooh, let's do it.
Are you ready to share one, Kay?
I am.
All right.
My band, Girls in the Nose, played the day stage in 94 and 95. And in 95, this woman, Leah, who's actually now the wife of Lisa Vogel, who was the founder of the Michigan Women's Music Festival. Leah worked in Gals, and she fashioned for me a labial vagina, sort of headpiece.
Can you say what Gals is?
Oh, Gals was a kitchen for workers. There was the kitchen. I worked in the kitchen for the campers and festigoers, and Gals was a kitchen where all the workers ate.
Great.
So
please go on about the giant vulva backdrop.
Well, she had access to, these wide rolls of aluminum foil that they used for cooking. Right. And so, I mean, Leah was a genius. She goes, "I'm going to make this for you. You're going to be like a walking vagina." I was like, fabulous. And, so she shapes this whole labial, clitoral, monstrosity around me. And, and I was taken undercover to the backstage area. And, and then, we get on stage and I don't know, we start seeing, I mean, the Girls in the Nose songs were quite transgressive and raucous. And, I could, it was hard for me to control myself enough to keep my vagina on. And so, I mean, I don't know. I guess at some moment I just let it rip, and I was singing some song like Medusa or Star Power. I don't know what it was. And the whole thing just starts coming apart and just flying off into the audience. And people are catching, they're going, I've got Kay's vagina. I've got Kay's vagina. And, I mean, this is the kind of thing that can only happen at the Michigan Women's Music Festival. And, should I read it as an embarrassment or as a triumph? It's a triumph, right?
Absolute triumph. And you were sharing your vulva energy with the entire audience.
I was sharing my woman power. Yeah.
It also like when the like Tom Jones used to like have women like throw their underwear at him. It was kind of like the opposite. You were like, yes, releasing the energy. That is an amazing
It was hilarious.
Hey, it's one of the things that I remember. I was there that year, and it's like every time when we talk about you, I'm like, oh my God, Amy, do you remember? It's like that's when I saw.
Oh, that's right, Amy. That's right. Amy was there.
Wow.
Oh God, yeah.
Classic.
Well, it was
that is a fabulous story. I see you ready to jump in, Jamie. I know there are Michigan stories in your.
Well, I thought I was the only one who did weird stuff on stage at festivals, but hey, I don't believe I've ever wore a vagina on my head. So that was very good.
It was enlightening.
Way before the pussy hats, you were way ahead of your time.
Oh yes,
way ahead of your time.
I'll screen share it on the Susquehanna website.
Oh, please do.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Perfect. Well, I do a lot of comedy, and I also do a lot of MC work. And as part of my MC work, I've been known to do weird stuff because you got to entertain people while they're doing a set change. And I've played the ukulele behind my head while hula hooping. I have. I'll demonstrate now if you want. I don't have a hoop with me, but
use the cat.
Oh yeah, my cat is photobombing probably.
No, I said use the cat.
Use the cat. No, I don't think he would go for that. But I've also twirled the baton. One year I had them play marching band music, and I came out and twirling the baton. I have belly danced on stage. In fact, I've been taking belly dance classes for maybe 6 months, and I got all decked out in a costume to MC. And I remember standing backstage at the National Women's Music Festival, and Mary Byrne, who used to produce it, Mary Byrne, she booked me a lot, but she was kind of baffled by my humor. She wasn't one of those people who readily got comedy, right? So I'm backstage ready to go out and dance, and I'm wearing, a sequin bra, and she looks me up and down, and she said, "Oh." That's all she said before the music started up, and I went out there to belly dance.
Oh, there you go.
And people would say things like, "Well, why don't you belly dance while you play the guitar?" And my answer always was because the sequins would scratch the back of the guitar. I mean, besides, if you're standing there in a beaded bra, who the hell's going to be hearing the music?
Right, sure.
So I have a particular memory from Camp Fest when Lisa Koch was singing "My Vulva is Singing," and there is a line that says, "My cheeks, they are glowing, my fluids are flowing." And do you recall this?
Yes.
Jamie? Yes. Do you want to tell the rest of the story?
Well, I probably don't remember it the same as you do because I think I was between Lisa Koch's legs, right?
Yes, under her gown. She was in a... Yes.
She told me to do it. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Lisa Koch is one of the funniest women on the planet. She
brilliant,
did a lot of performing for Olivia
brilliant.
Princess now.
Very
She was
funny.
part of a duo called Dos Fallopia. They were just hysterical. And she said, "Oh yeah, and then when I get to my juices are flowing part, I want you to squirt water out of your mouth in between my legs." And I went, "Sure."
It was an amazing moment. And Alex Dobkin also performed at that festival and did something, and Lisa Koch also roped her into doing some interactive thing. So a lot of amazing moments.
That's one of the things I adored about Alex Dobkin is that Alex could, do a serious feminist angry tune with the best of them and, talk a lot about feminism and about, really serious things. But she was also up for stuff like that, actually she may have done that at one festival, been the person with squirting water out of her mouth. I don't know, but, she was great that way.
You guys remember Shauna Dempsey?
Yes.
she's a Canadian, right? Isn't she a Canadian
Right.
gal?
Yes.
I don't know.
Winnipeg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Winnipeg.
She,
Yeah, right. She
she
wore a
dressed,
giant labia costume,
she
if I
dressed
remember
up
right.
as a giant
Yes,
lady.
that's right.
Right. So huge,
Yeah.
and people, she would wear it to parties and people thought she was a lobster, And and she actually did when she was in Canada. She would go and do to schools. She would do health and phys ed classes dressed in this, and she'd point out the places. And she got to the part where she's like, "And here's where you pee." She'd hit a little button, so she had a little button, a little squirt gun.
It was an educational, interactive experience. I love
Yes,
that.
Yes, we
exactly.
were way before the vagina monologues. Way
Yeah.
before.
Oh, way
And it
before.
was a lot of dialogue, not just monologue. The thing that you bring up, Jamie, is humor runs through a lot of women's music and other kinds of women performers, which defies the kind of humorless feminist trope that
Right.
sometimes the general culture can have. Because and what you described about that feeling when an audience laughs, and you made that happen is an amazing
right.
feeling.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
done emceeing, I've done a little stand-up. In fact, my only performance experience at Mitch Fest is that the August Night Cafe used to have open mic, and they had 3 jars for poetry, comedy, and music. And I put my name in all 3. And when I got picked, because it raised I did one of each. I did a quick poem, I did a little banter stand-up in between, and I did an a cappella song. So, that's my one thing, my one moment as a performer.
Yeah.
But I figured raise the odds with that.
I got a Michigan story to tell, and
Please.
Amy's part of it. I was touring with Lucy Blue a couple of times in my career, but once was that early 2000s, right, Aim? It was right after I was on tour with Lucy for 3 solid months. We had, because she's Canadian, for you people who don't know her, she's a French Canadian songwriter, and so from with a green with all the what am I
Getting your
thinking?
working papers
Yes,
to
so
tour in the
everything was
US.
booked like a year ahead. So we had this entire tour. I mean, I wasn't home. I left from September. I got back mid-December, and everybody, took care of dogs and took care of my house and took care of my mail. And that was my most intense tour. I mean, I've toured a lot, but not that solid of never seeing home for 2 seasons. But I had I had the luxury of being able to tour with her and play some unbelievable venues. She's at the top of the game, and I got to come in and be a side person, which was really fun. I got to just play some great licks and do some great harmonies and not be the front person, which was really fun for a while. And so we got to do Michigan. We did the night stage, and then we also did at the so the night stage is really, really epic for all of you folks who have not had a chance to experience it. Then there's what's called the acoustic stage. So for all you people that knew the acoustic stage, and it's just a natural amphitheater. The one thing about Michigan and most of the women's music festivals, but specifically what I appreciated about Michigan is that they owned the land, and that's a whole. We could go into this for we could write books, and books have been written about the Michigan experience, but it's a collective of women who bought land, and to have these gatherings, which is a huge goal of mine, to have that happen, because it's important. Even though women's music is kind of slowly kind of getting into the mainstream, it's still important for us to have a gathering place, and that's a whole nother topic. But so Michigan is this spectacular place, and how they end the festival each year is going after you have the big event of the night stage, and then you go down to the acoustic stage, where it's very quiet, and it's a very solemn, it's a very emotional experience to leave an intense festival like that, after you have spent in some cases 10 days, 2 weeks if you've worked the festival, maybe longer, and now the festival is dispersing and you're leaving, and you want to honor the land and let it recuperate and grow back until the next year. The night stage or the acoustic stage, it was just by luck that the way we set up on the stage, I was the farthest left up on the stage. So everybody just had a chair, you sat there. And then the whole bowl of where everybody's sitting, they had flashlights and candles. And just by dumb luck, the way it worked out, after each person on that stage is done, they would get up and they would take their chair. Remember how that worked, you guys? Then the next person get up, take the chair, next person still playing, still playing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the last person. I ended up being, like I said, by dumb luck, being the last person to play at that particular festival on that year. And it's something that will stick with me because, and there's not a round of applause. It has nothing to do with that exchange of wow, 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 but just, and that's what women's music is so powerful about, is the emotional, it's the whole picture. It's not just the ego involved of standing up on stage and selling a record, or selling a CD or selling a book or selling a t-shirt. It's the experience that we hopefully all get from it. So that's
creating a container.
Yep.
I've been at those final Sunday night candlelight concerts, and it's all of us having that experience, not I'm just passively taking in what's going on.
Right. And then how do you go back to your world, your reality? And that's why, I think we'll talk about that later, how we're setting up and how we continue to play music and create our own safe space in the towns that we live, because we can't all live in Michigan all year round. Dag burn it.
Well, I actually wanted to bring it into the current day because there are still up and coming artists. There's a young out lesbian country artist just came to my attention, Katie Pruill. She's 21. She's like out in her music videos and in her lyrics. And there are some artists who've made more mainstream connection and being out, like Amethyst Kaya and Brandy Carlisle. So it is an interesting time that you all and the women who came before us paved the way to make it safe, and many other activists in many other ways, to make it safe that, coming out as a lesbian, as Jamie said, was back in the day a career killer. And that's not the case anymore, which is just an amazing arc that I don't know that I expected to see in my lifetime, just like I didn't expect to have the ability to marry my partner, in my lifetime. But one of the things I wanted to bring into the present day is how you all have, particularly in the last almost 2 years of the pandemic, how has the internet impacted the way that you continue to connect with audiences? We're going to hold you, Bobbi, because there's a great story there that many folks may know. But Jamie, you've done some of your, concerts from home. How has that been for you?
Oh my gosh, you really want to talk to me about that? Because I hate doing online concerts.
Be honest.
In the pandemic, there were no other options. So, of course, I did them, and I was grateful for the people who came to hear me. But I really need the energy of a live audience. But the way that things have changed for me over the years is that, women's music audiences started to decrease in the 90s, and they're almost non-existent now. We do have a few festivals and a few performers, but there's younger women are doing their own thing, and it's something separate from what we did. And so I can't return to the places where I used to play. So in that respect, it's different. But there are some straight places, some coffee houses and festivals who have embraced what I do. And so that's where I play these days. And what was the question? You're muted, Deb.
It has to happen at least once in a Zoom. You answered it, that for some artists that connecting via live streaming was, a good thing, and it doesn't work for everyone. And it is a completely different thing to not have the energy back. As somebody that does radio, which is really me talking to myself in a padded room, hoping that someone's listening, I understand that challenge. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I've done radio too. I was a radio DJ for KXCI in the 90s, and so I totally get that. But, it's also different for me because a third of my live act is comedy. And it's so integral to comedy to hear the audience laugh. You need to know what's working. You need to know if you need to pause the song because they're laughing. With serious songs, that's different. I can just put my all into it and I know that they're out there, and that's actually a little better.
Mm-hmm. And Barb, I know that you have put some of your music out on YouTube, some very personal songs. And has that expanded the way that you've been able to connect with audiences?
Yeah, I think so. One of the other things that I did, I was volunteering in Flint during the water crisis, running a water distribution site there. And I was so moved by the people who live there and the endurance and strength that they had, and also by all the people who volunteered to come. I mean, people were coming there from all over the country, showing up in their SUV or their little small car packed with water to bring to these folks that they didn't even know. I wrote a song called Water, and I used, basically the lyrics are just things that all of the people said to me as they were coming through to get their water. And I wanted to make a music video. I put it on my last album, and I thought, what would be really powerful is to have a gospel choir from Flint sing on this song. And that went to, let's make a music video, which then actually turned into a documentary short. I added some additional footage into there. And I thought, well, I'll enter it in film festivals and see what happens, And I ended up getting, 6 or 7 awards for the film. And that got the song out in a way that I never had imagined before. I haven't been doing concerts. I mean, this is the first time I've performed since 2019. It's actually the 4th time or 5th time when I started rehearsing for this that I picked up a guitar in that time, because I had 3 surgeries on my right hand, so I haven't really been able to play much. I thought my music career was done, I thought that was going to be the end of it. So I haven't really put out a lot on the internet, but I do, like Jamie said, I also feed off the energy of the audience, and that connection with people I miss. Even going to concerts now where there's social distancing, the live shows, I don't really enjoy it because I'm not able to physically connect with people the way that I really like to do. I don't want to sit 6 feet away from them in every other pew with a mask on. I want to see their face. I want to hug them. I want to be close to them and talk to them. And while some people enjoy still getting to see the live music, for me, it just is missing something, And I think with the internet, it's the same kind of thing. Although it does provide you an opportunity to reach people you could never reach otherwise, because, almost everyone is on the web right now.
Right. And I just, in case anyone didn't get the reference to the work you were doing in Flint, was after some horrible decisions were made by local government that contaminated their public water supply with lead, which is a crisis that continues. And I've really admired your on the ground work and the message you got out through that song and video.
Right.
And Bobbi, you had the advantage of not having to perform alone online, which I think makes a big difference. And you want to talk some about how you've had this online community grow up around that you and Ashley created during the pandemic.
Yeah. First of all, I just happen to have Barb Barton's most fabulous record, which has that. I was listening to some stuff of hers. It is absolutely beautiful. And Barb, honest to God, Jamie, I wish I had some of yours. I have your book, but you already plugged it. But it's just I had it about 3 days before I did a stained glass art show just last week, and I had it in the studio for a couple of days. So I got to be in my art studio like a little elf listening to this, and it's just beautiful. It's just
thank
beautiful.
you, Bobbi.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right.
Well, the pandemic has just annihilated live music and that sense of community. It was Ann Billmeyer who kind of got me being the performer that I am, and understanding that everybody who shows up had to do something to get there. They had to hire a babysitter, they had to change their shift, they had to drive somewhere, they had to whatever. So you make sure everybody understands that you appreciate that they're there, whether it's taking 5 seconds when you walk through to say, how you doing, how's your kid, how's your dog, sorry about your dad, and so that was kind of instilled in me in my early 20s, and I continued that. It's just part of I guess who I am and how I like to relate to the two-way street that live music is. And then so I moved up to Hershey here, probably 6 or 7 months before the pandemic hit, and moved in with my partner. And I, at that point, hadn't lived with anybody since, let's just say, 1990. So that was a really long time. I mean, so sharing a space with somebody was kind of bizarre to begin with. Then the pandemic, then I'm not playing, and I'm like, okay, we have to do something to bring this community who are all just, a lot of the people in the community I've known since the 80s. I've been fortunate to tour everywhere, but have my base still be my hometown group of people who have, a lot of them really. And it's not even loyalty. It's just, we're in each other's DNA, our experiences of loss and, going through losing Anne at a young age has cemented the community with a really powerful glue that we all are now able to, continue on, but we go back to that. So thinking of doing something on social media made perfect sense to just kind of, slip into that. We were going to try one song on March 13th, 2020. We were going to try, and I said to Ash, who is not, who had not at that point really had that understanding of what a community is like, to continue to have them kind of follow you through the years and support each other. So she kind of like, sure, I'll do a song. And we had like, oh my God, you guys, like, I think I saw Donna Rock just tuning in here. So hi, Donna, and hi, Gina Bina Shelton. I don't know who else is all here. I just see you guys once in a while. So hi, Gina's down in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and Donna's here in Hershey. To be all of a sudden, I wish you guys could all experience what it feels like to have a cross section of your life from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s all kind of come in to your screen when you're there, and you see kids I went to school with, babysitters, friends of mine's parents, friends of mine's grandkids, they're all here. And I'm like, I can't wait for Cassie Schelling to meet Gina Shelton, because they're going to move to the same place. I can't wait and to see all of these kind of, just because I guess I'm the hub of the wheel, but all the spokes, it has been an unbelievable experience that we tried it for one song, and we ended up playing an hour. Then we said, we'll do it again tomorrow. We'll do it again. And, everybody just was, everybody got something out of it, and Jamie, you're talking about playing live, how hard that is to not have that instantaneous, should I hold this chord? Should I not? And I think because Ashley and I were FaceTiming or Facebooking each other for, on being on Messenger, before I moved up here, you kind of have that Marco Polo, that instantaneous reaction has to expand by about 10 seconds. So everything is just a little slower, but it still comes back, so it makes you slow down and not go, oh my God, no one's listening, but go, no, wait. And then to see everybody chiming in. So that's kind of how we ended up doing it. We made it for a year, and there's going to be books written about it, I'm sure. We got cookbooks out, T-shirts, traveling journals, everything, and it's this great community. So.
And you were able to, as we had kind of the sweet spot, and people were getting vaccinated this summer, you hosted 2 gatherings, so that some of us who were 3. I only made it to 2, so of course I forgot the third one.
Right.
That we had the opportunity for some of that in real life contact.
Right. We dangled that concept of getting together and finally doing it. So it's pretty powerful, and thank you.
And I know Kay has had some pandemic project experience, so chime in, Kay Turner.
Yeah, thank you. I know I'm not an official panelist on this.
Yes, you are. Knock it off.
Okay. I'm okay, good. I wanted to bring this up because Rue Watson is on this session. She's an old friend of mine from New Jersey, and in 2019, she was one of the video recorders, along with a couple of other women who recorded Lesbopalooza, the 25th anniversary show, which was, it was part of Stonewall 50 here in New York City. And it was, a lot of the projects that I do, and I'm sure many of you will, sort of agree on this as well. A lot of what I do comes out of some irritation, something irritates me. And then, it starts to turn into, well, I should do something about it. And then, suddenly, it's going to be Lesbopalooza, which actually was a big lesbian variety show that I did with Girls in the Nose in 1994 for the 25th anniversary of Stonewall, when there was very little lesbian representation. And, all the gay boys were out there, yada-yaing about, what they had accomplished. And, really, I felt like a story was not being told. Again, it's kind of like the way we're telling these stories today. A story was not being told about the involvement of lesbians in gay liberation, in GLF, the Gay Liberation Front, in, various, the Lavender Menace, all of that. And so I did this show here in New York in 1994. I brought Girls in the Nose. We were based in Austin, Texas at the time, and we came up here, we toured up, and then we did a big crazy show here that Alex Dobkin was in, and Eileen Miles, and the Mall Girls, and just Nidra Johnson, just a bunch of crazy stuff. So when Stonewall 50 was going to happen in 2019, had things changed? No. They were pouring, just gazillions of dollars of gay money into basically creating venues and spaces and audiences and performers for gay men. And I was like, oh, no. Okay, guess we have to do Lesbopalooza, the 25th anniversary show. So it was here in New York at Dixon Place. And it was just, lesbians were hanging from the rafters. It was a packed show. Alex, it's the last show I think that Alex did. I'm pretty sure. She came back, she sang, If It Wasn't for the Women, one of her great songs. And Nidra performed, and, just bunches of people performed. It went on for four hours. Well, so then during the pandemic, I realized that show had represented the before times for lesbians in New York, that we were all in kind of a state of lamenting that we were never going to get together again to do anything, let alone, listen to live music. So I got with Rue and the other original videographer for that show, who's also a filmmaker. And together we made a documentary of that show. And then it was presented as part of the Hot Festival, which is a festival that happens of queer and gay and lesbian performance. It happens here in New York in the summertime. And if I can get it together, maybe it'll go out to some festivals and stuff like that, but some film festivals, but I haven't done much with it yet. But it was a great project to do, because again, I'm very committed. I guess because, you know, well, you all are 64, I'm 73, so I'm 10 years ahead of you. And I am very committed at this point to conserving lesbian culture and making sure that it's available, you know, for people, for the world to see what a difference it does make. And I will shout out also to Susan Post, who's on this session this morning. She is she's the owner and founder of Bookwoman in Austin, Texas, the original and still functioning almost 50 years later women's bookstore in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
Someone who's been a great support to me over the years, great support to women's music. She's hosted endless amounts of women at the store playing, you know, acoustic music, band music, authors, everything else. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I gave a shout out to the two important people who are on this with me today.
Absolutely. And I thank you for the name Lesbopalooza is a fabulous
Classic.
name. And thank you for keeping it going and documenting it so that, you know, others can learn from it.
We didn't have anything. We had hardly even any photographs from the one in 1994. So it really compelled me. And it was I made up Lesbopalooza because Lollapalooza was starting at that time.
I recall.
That show, you know, that the big rock show was just going out at that time in 90. I think that was their first year, 94 or 93, maybe it was.
Something around there. And I really resonate with what you were saying about most of the Pride events are so gay male centric. And my musical collaborator, Karen Eskovitz, some of you know as Otter, we're a duo in the 90s, and we store for the boat gig. So on the Delaware River, they had a party boat where they had a fundraiser for the Philadelphia Pride. And we followed a series of fabulous drag performers lip syncing, and we had to say, "Hi, we're women, and we're actually singing." Because it was like we were such a different category. Like,
Right.
You know, their costumes aren't very interesting or shiny. No, we're women. Hello, these are original songs.
Yeah, and can we talk about Pride events? You know, I have never loved playing at them because inevitably they'll put me out after some Cher impersonator who has, you know, dance music pumping out of the speakers, and I come shuffling out with my little guitar going, "Oh, and here's a song about, you know, whatever." So yeah, I feel your pain, and the boys didn't really show up for what we did. They weren't really interested in what we were doing, so we had to do our own thing. And I mean, that wasn't the only reason, of course, but that's one of them.
There were, you know, very few exceptions, like J.D. Doyle, who some of us know from
Love
Austin,
him.
who's an amazing LGBTQ music show on the radio for years and has an amazing website, which I'm not going to remember, but we'll find it in.
I do.
Thank you.
queermusicheritage.com. And there are interviews with all kinds of people, and
Everybody.
album scans, and you name it. I mean, it's where I got a lot of information for the book that I wrote about women's music. He has an original interview with Maxine Feldman that you just have to hear.
Yeah, and he scanned liner notes and album covers. Just amazing gem. And I haven't been looking at the chat to see if we had any questions, and should be. It's a great reminder that we do have some music distribution still. So I think we might have Susan from Goldenrod on the on the Zoom that we used to have two, was Lady Slipper and Goldenrod. One year I've worked at both of their booths at Michigan. My favorite story is that we had I was working for Lady Slipper one of their last years. It was a terrible rain year, and we literally had to dig trenches around the booth so that we could protect the music that was up on tables. So I've worked in the trenches of women's music very little. But goldenrod.com is still an amazing distributor of music by all kinds of women, all kinds of genres. So goldenrod, like the flower.com. Please matronize our women's businesses. And I appreciate Kay, the shout out you gave to Susan Post, because in Philadelphia, we're having a little renaissance of independent booksellers. And I'm hoping that as people appreciate the value of being able to be in person, because it became so precious when so much was shut down appropriately at the beginning of the pandemic, that we realized the value of those spaces, and that many folks, still want that physical book and want to support that local business, not, the conglomerates that will mail you things. We are at our time. This has been an amazing opportunity to talk to you amazing women. My thanks to Kate Turner and Bobbi Carmitchell and Barb Barton and Jamie Anderson. There's lots more going on today. And as Amy reminded us, each of the events today have their own link. So thanks for pre-registering. All the links are in that email. We're going to have a little break, and we reconvene at what time, Amy?
Amy's going to know.
We reconvene at 12:45. We have about a half an hour for lunch. So we will come back at 12:45. So, you've heard little snippet, you've heard pieces of the music at the first session, and now you've heard some stories about kind of where these women find meaning and find value in their lives and the stories that are important to them. And so our next session is really looking at their songwriting, and the ways that they use music to really drive messages home, from love songs to very intense political social change music. So go have a lunch break, and we will be back here at 12:45.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks to Jess and Lori from Susquehanna Folk for all the behind the scenes stuff.
Right. And Joe, too.
And Joe, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We'll see you soon.